Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Matthew Gilbert, and my presentation is essentially a case study of sorts, and it is called Driven to Share, the impact of car sharing service Ecar on sustainable transportation in Dubai. Now before I get started, hopefully I can be afforded a couple extra minutes, I would like everybody to stand up. Okay, so think about your daily commute, okay? If your commute is 20 minutes or less, you can sit down. If your commute is between 21 and 40 minutes, you can sit down. Okay, so judging by that completely non-scientific study, there's a mix of people with shorter commutes of less than 20 minutes, and what I would say maybe is a moderate to perhaps slightly longer commute, depends on what end you are, okay? And I just wanted to start with that because certainly we are all affected by traffic and congestion, and I wanted to just start with that to get us in the mindset. Okay. Well, I'll be doing this manually. Okay. So let me go over the agenda. So I tried to keep this simple, tried to follow the Simon Sinek method of why, how, what. So the first section is why Ecar exists. This is essentially the problem statement. How Ecar differentiates itself. Lastly is what Ecar actually does. Everybody wasn't working. Okay. So why? So let me give you some basic facts about Dubai and the congestion here. So Dubai has 3 million residents and 1.7 million vehicles. Okay. The active daytime population of another million people. So every day another million people come into Dubai from various other emirates or locations to conduct business, to work, whatever they do. Each day, because of that, an additional 500,000 vehicles drive into Dubai daily. So you can see these numbers are starting to really grow. On average, Dubai motorists spend 29 hours in rush hour traffic annually. That's certainly not the largest number of the survey that was conducted, but for those of you who've been stuck in traffic, and by some strange coincidence, I was stuck in traffic both last night, trying to get back to campus after doing something, and this morning I missed 2 exits on the way here because of congestion and truck traffic. So my drive here was about 20 minutes longer than it normally is. So I thought it was apropos. The cost to the local economy because of this congestion and traffic is estimated at $1.2 billion each year in lost work hours. Basically, there are more than 570 cars per 1,000 people. That's more than half, right? And it's projected that this will only increase definitely during Expo 2020 and possibly after. I might retain that. Oh, it did work. So I won't read both of these, but what these quotes point out is that the actual cost is often more than just monetary, right? So the actual costs here are health costs, are environmental costs, damage to the environment, stress, all of these things. And the transportation sector accounts for 32% of the total energy consumption in Dubai. And it represents a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. So clearly there's multiple levels of problems here. So what is one solution? Why does Ecar exist? So essentially what the going thinking is, well, if you have a lot of cars, the best way to reduce problems that those cars create is to have less cars, right? Okay, so reducing individual car ownership with car sharing services can help this problem. One proven option emerging in the Middle East, but that has been proven elsewhere, is car sharing. So car sharing falls under this umbrella of the shared economy. This is something like Airbnb, right, that you might be familiar with. So the shared economy involves ownership and access being shared between corporations, startups, and people. This results in market efficiencies that bear new products, services, and business growth. The Dubai sharing economy is predicted to be valued at $335 billion by 2025. So there's definitely opportunity there. One study by a company that has a similar business model as Ecar in the US called Car2Go showed that each vehicle in their fleet removed up to 11 personal cars. It removed the need for up to 11 personal cars. Most personal cars actually sit idle and unused for 95% of the time anyway. So, you drive to work, it sits in the parking lot, nobody else uses it, and then you drive home, period. So Ecar has 3 green achievements through its business and operations. One is that it reduces traffic by removing 17 private cars for each shared Ecar. So their research actually shows a greater benefit, a larger impact by reducing up to 17 personal cars because of their services. It also reduces demand for parking spaces by an estimated 35%. How many of you guys have driven around and around and around and around trying to find somewhere to park? You either give up or you park on a curb and then get a ticket or something like that, right? Okay. It also reduces emissions as a byproduct of the lower vehicle density. So how does Ecar differentiate itself? Well, the Dubai RTA launched a service in 2017 with which customers can rent cars for 15 minutes to 6 hours. And actually that's been changed since. You can literally rent the car for 1 minute, okay? There are 2 vendors, Ecar, the one that's the focus of my research here, and another one, UDrive, that were basically contracted to provide parallel and equal services. So both started with 100 vehicles at more than 45 locations across Dubai, including 5 metro stations. Now they've doubled that number, so there are 200 cars per each vendor. The base cost is 50 fills per minute, so it's half a dirham, 30 dirhams per hour, and you accrue a fee for 4.5 hours, and then after that 4.5 hours, you're no longer charged anything. So it maxes out, and you can keep the car for 24 hours total. Actually, it's not even the car. You can use any car within the system for within a 24-hour period based on the initial charge that you were given for the initial use up to that 4.5 hours. The cool thing about this service is that it includes RTA parking fees. So you can just park the car in any RTA space and not have to pay for it. It includes comprehensive insurance, and probably the best benefit, it comes with free petrol, free gas, right? So you just drive up to an EPCO or an ENOC station, and there's a little RFID chip in the little door, the gas door, and they fill it up. You don't do anything. They just fill it up and you go. Okay. So again, I mentioned UDrive. So UDrive and Ecar are slightly different in how they've developed themselves. UDrive operates in Dubai and Sharjah primarily. Ecar has focused on Dubai and Abu Dhabi and keeping an eye towards expansion into other GCC countries. Okay, I'll mention this a little bit more specifically in a little bit. Their general philosophy based on an interview, I conducted a phone interview with 2 individuals from Ecar, and the quote that they gave me was, their goal is car sharing made easy. Some of the benefits and the way that they achieve this goal is that the whole system runs on an app. It's kind of like Uber, except for you're locating where vehicles are that you can go then access through a PIN you get in the app. It unlocks the door. You use your PIN to get the key out of the glove box, and then off you go. If there's any problems, they have a customer service number that's readily available. Actually, the one time that I tested it, I had problems with the car, and I had to get them to unlock the car and lock it twice for me. They can unlock the car remotely. If you ever leave something in the car, or like I did, you leave the headlights on. You sign up once, and you have access to all the cars. There's no security deposit. Anyone in here who has rented a car here is usually at least a 1,500 dirham security deposit that sits with the car rental company until you return it. Okay, and there's tons of paperwork, right? The only thing they charge you is 1 dirham on whichever credit or debit card you use. Okay. Okay. So what does Ecar do? So basically, what was said to me is they want to McDonaldize themselves as much as possible. So anyone who knows anything about McDonald's knows it's not really about hamburgers, it's about a system. right? It's about a replicatable system that's sort of almost plug and play, right? So their operations anchor to the app, but because of that app, it liberates the customers. So everything ties to the app, but even though everything just comes through it, it doesn't restrain you, it does the opposite. It gives you lots of options. I talked about the customer service. There's just a few basic things you need to get started. You need to be at least 21. You need a valid driving license, either from UAE or wherever you're coming if you happen to be visiting. And if you are a resident, your Emirates ID, but if you're visiting, like any of you in attendance who are not residents here, you just send a copy, you send a PDF or a picture, actually do a picture through the app of your visit visa, okay, your visitor visa. And typically you get approved within an hour. And one thing they do now is if you guys were to sign up today, you get 60 minutes free. Okay, so, and I did the same when I first tried to just do a test drive, basically. So they essentially have three different service options. The first one is the basic one, and this is just Ecar. They also call it Ecar RTA. This is typically a Nissan Tita, and this is the cars that are available through the RTA initiative. You use this car typically for running errands. What they said is usually the average rental time is about 40 minutes. This compares to a taxi trip of about 15 to 20. So you would use this car maybe to go to IKEA, right, to pick up something you bought, or to drive from JBR to somewhere else. I saw someone with a great travel hack on their Instagram stories they reshared from someone else where she lives, I think, in JBR, and she uses Ecar to drive to the airport and then just leaves the car there. And she said it's half the price of getting a taxi or a limo to the airport. Ecar X is nicer cars, I guess. There's brands like MG, Nissan Infiniti, Mini Coopers, and actually they have actually brought 3 of their cars and they parked them in the parking lot. So you can't rent those and turn them offline, but if you want to go see what some of the cars look like, they've parked 3 of them in the parking lot just over there. They also have a special promotion with Etihad, the cabin crew, okay? So just the last 2 slides and I'll wrap it up. So going back to so real briefly, their user profile, they have about 20,000 active users. 90% of those users are 20 to 30 years old. The early adopters of this app and this system were primarily from Southeast Asia, China, India, Pakistan, and the Philippines. Later adopters have been from the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. As far as user engagement, I was just mentioning their social media. They're very active and engaged. They reshare people's Instagram posts, Instagram stories, and I actually made my initial contact with them through Facebook, which is where I'm actually live streaming this presentation as well. And they were very responsive. I initially reached out to both Ecar and UDrive, and I never heard back, unfortunately, from UDrive, but I almost immediately heard from Ecar, and they were very responsive, and they've been responsive ever since. They've been very involved. They provided me materials. They brought these cars here just for display purposes. So I really appreciate their willingness to work with me. And in fact, this morning I just got an email from the CEO and co-founder about being very open to helping. So again, this is like a first step in a larger journey or a longer journey, and I look forward to taking
Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Mr. Matthew. I'm sorry that there's no time.